And welcome today. This is going to be the first best of three between our first member, Onu, is our red Infernal player. And Frank, do you want to introduce our other player?
I would. I don't have the bracket pulled up. Please go for it.
It is Sodam in the blue Infernal. And this is going to be a co-cast with Frank today. So welcome, Frank, to the cast.
Thank you very much for having me.
And it looks like we've got an IVI to start out, and this is certainly the matchup that I know the most about. I've cast so many IVI recently. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah, IVI is definitely popular these days, especially since 0.1.3 dropped, and yeah, Infernals are just a very popular race at the moment.
Right.
That and like personally, I think they're the coolest looking, but
I
that's
love
just me.
them. They're my favorite. We had a little
Yeah.
Hexen on Hexen violence there, but it looks like Onu teleported his or Hexen back home. And it looks like it's going to be Vault Conclave double production buildings out of Onu and a single Conclave so far out of Sodam. And
You know,
Sodam started creeping.
every time I see these early, just while the creeping is going down, when you go into Untapped and you like drill down into the build orders, I think it's Shrine First has the highest success rate, but I haven't done much analysis in terms of like what's the win rate versus other races. It's interesting to see that in the IVI though, you want production up as quickly as possible, but that's probably just to get creeping as quickly as possible.
I hear you. If you talk to MSRM, I'm sure he'd say Shrine First is the way to go. I've watched a few of his games in the last couple of weeks, and he's been opening Shrine First all the time. But strangely, I feel like in IVI you can kind of open up in these different ways and still be kind of successful. So, Snockstar was telling me you got to rush the Shrine First, but then MSRM can defend it. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the right build is.
Yeah. It seems it stands to reason that if someone goes for the eco first build, that there'd be some kind of way to punish the greed. But if if a player's at a high enough skill level that they're able to do a greedy play and defend it at the same time, that says a lot about maybe possibly the game, but possibly about the just how good the player is as well.
Exactly. And I think it is good for the game if there are multiple openings that are feasible, depending, if it relies on player skill to determine who's going to win. That's what we want to see, right? Little
Absolutely.
skirmish here over the speed camp, but it looks like no, they're both retreating back.
Yeah. Both players on similar incomes anyway, and I want to say that their naturals are probably at about the same spot in terms of completion.
I think
Um,
Sodan
I,
was a little quicker on his natural there.
oh, was he?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and we'll see how that translates into maybe unit army because we do see Onu's still coming together, but his army seems to be a little smaller even in the supply measure at the bottom there. So
Yeah. You know what I really like actually is when players build meat farms on top of a camp, because I know like say your opponent comes by, kills all the creeps, whatever, and they capture your camp. Um, if they leave, the fell hogs will recapture that camp for you. Like, yeah, you didn't get the Luminite reward for killing them off, but it's still not. It's one less thing you have to worry about for recapturing your stuff if like a single fiend or like three fiends come by.
I agree completely. And then the question becomes where are you going to put that farm? You know, you
Yeah,
can't really put them at all the camps. I mean, maybe we'll see that meta develop at some point, but it seems like players like to put it at maybe one camp, and that camp depends a little bit on their choices as creeping order and such.
I think we will see it come into the meta. Meat farms are just so inexpensive that it might as well be two fiends worth of money being spent. And if it kills two fiends that try to come by and capture the camp, it's already paid for itself.
Sure, and it like you said, it defends itself, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
so it's already there to defend itself, and it also is a good little scout sometimes. Lets you know when an army comes by, and then it will delay that army often if the army has to deal with it.
Absolutely. I've definitely made a couple of sacrificial meat farms where it's like, you know what? I know they're going to be coming through here eventually. Are the Fellhogs going to do much damage? No. But are they going to like? Is that a good cheap early warning? Yeah, definitely. And it's something that doesn't require supply for me to just leave it there. It's not like a fiend that is now anyway a significant amount of DPS that I want to stick with my army. It's just, hey, if I lose a meat farm, so be it. It's not that big of a deal.
Indeed. We saw a scout fiend kind of from Onu try and get some information there, and it looks like that Sodam is up to a greater shrine. We see Demon Hoof Tremors on the way, as well as Plague Axes. So a little bit late on the Plague Axes, but we also see a third base going down. And let's take a peek back home for Onu. Onu has also... oh, this is Reaper's Rush almost done. So a little bit ahead on the Gaunt upgrades, and a Hellport still just coming down. And now it looks like there's going to be a battle in the center. Both armies kind of pulling back after Sodam cleared out the Luminite Tower.
I'm really liking the positioning on that effigy too. It's very nicely like, hey, this is my half of the central Luminite camp. Like, you can step onto my half if you want, but you're walking into gaunts that are on creep or that are on shroud that
Indeed.
have plague axes. So
Indeed.
it's not plonked right in the middle where everyone's going to benefit from it.
Also makes it harder for your opponent to knock it out if they're targeting it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it stayed though. I don't think he made it a permanent effigy, did it?
No, he didn't. No, it's gone. Although he is, it looks like rallying his gaunts out there. Now both of their health camps have respawned, so often players will go back and try and reclaim that, but it looks like Onu's being a little aggressive here with his army position at least. No, he's just taking the Therium camp. And here we see Sodam coming to reclaim his health camp, and so is Onu. Again, that passive regen is just so good. You really want it on your army.
Yeah, definitely. It I notice it a lot more when you have both. When you have one, it's you know, it's nice that you get one HP every 2 seconds, but
Is that what the regen is? 1 HP every 2 seconds? When you have
yeah,
the
or
passive?
half an HP per second
Yeah.
per camp you have.
Yeah, right. And on your smaller units, this tends to feel a little bit more impactful when you're trying to wait for a Weaver or a Magmadon to regen at half a hit point per second.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since Infernals really don't have a way of healing their own stuff. Like with Celestials, you could, I mean, I believe anyway, talking to Oriel, that making a second arc ship so that way you have something making prisms and something making morph cores all the time. Like you could put that a little bit further forward and not worry about resetting all the way back to tier 1 if it gets taken out. But just having an arc ship sitting around making power banks and healing up your army is pretty good. But there's no mechanic like that for the Infernals. But that's probably because they're meant to be the high casualty, like stuff is meant to die and generate animus.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now we see Sodam sort of positioning his army in the center while also taking a 4th base. So far there's not been a lot of engagement between these two. Wonder what that's about. Mostly just macro on both sides.
Yeah, and we see okay, like those 2 fiends for Onu up at the 12 o'clock position going to scout the 4th, maybe.
Yes. They might.
Are they gonna see it? I don't think they're gonna go up the ramp.
This one's unfortunately just gonna see there's a giant army hanging out here. And the other one's almost scouting as though maybe I'll see an imp going that way. No,
he's gonna see the imp coming up from the corner. No. Okay,
Yeah.
he knows.
Yeah. So I assume that means Onu probably knows that there is this base over here. Well, now there's going to be Shroud coming down the ramp, so if he marches by, he will see that. But so far,
Yeah.
Onu is remaining in his own side of the map. He's got his own base up here as well. This is his 3rd, I guess. So that puts Sodam a little bit ahead in eco, and we see that translating into supply. He's about 50 ahead.
And he's floating so many resources too. He was up in 4 digits of Luminite just chilling. I don't know at that point if you just want to like burn some Animus to get more charges on your Iron Vaults, just so you can crank out some brutes and have some kind of DPS out
So
on the
does
map.
this mean
if you
he's
just wanna
all
spam
out
it.
of charges here? Remind me, when it's got the little claws on there.
Yeah, when it's lit up and it's got the shinies at the bottom, that
Yeah.
means it's got no more charges left. But when
Okay.
it's not glowing like that, it's out of charges, or it's got charges.
And what about these conclaves? When it's got the blood, that means no charges?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it should be flipped, where like if it's good to go, that's something you want to grab the eye. But
I agree with that particular judgment. But it's cool to know that they can show you that, especially for observers like us who do not have like observer tools yet to be able to know what's on the production and things like that.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of visual cues for upgrades and for like structure status, kind of like in SC2, how you could see what was being built inside of a Stormgate because it's kind of got like the lattice work inside of the Stargate, excuse me.
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I do like that, and I did also like how when you would have upgraded roaches, you could tell they were upgraded just by looking at them. The
Yeah, they
burrowing
had like little
claws.
spines
Yeah.
on them,
Yeah,
or like how the cattle bruiser would have like the glowy lights on it if it had Yamato researched.
exactly. That stuff's really would be really helpful just in game to know if your
I hope we get
opponent.
more of those.
Here we
I don't
go.
know. Oh, are they gonna go for it?
Nice nightfall. Get a couple units there. The gaunts are in the front, which is not usually the best way. You kind of want those mags up front.
Yeah, mags and brutes. You know what I haven't seen enough of, and I'm curious about your take on this, is Weavers lashing a friendly Magmadon that has stomped forward and taken a bunch of damage.
That would be
When they
so
do a
cool.
friendly lash, they
Look at these stomps.
restore all the white health. What a stomp!
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Right up inside all these units. Now that's not looking very good for Sodam, but those mags do not survive long enough to get a second stomp off, and I think that Sodam actually came out ahead in that.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like a lot of brutes turned into fiends. The fiend count there is really high, and I don't know that they're going to get good surface area. Oh, but Onu's mag comes forward, decides to pull back a little bit, I guess.
Now Sodam getting some major stomps in there.
And there's the GG.
That's a GG, yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know. Did their Hexens survive to the... I didn't see their Hexens moving around.
I don't remember actually.
Yeah. I think the Skull of Shedda is another one of those spells that, like, in the mid game, is underused as a scouting tool, just to know like where your opponent's army is at, and like the infestation isn't all that great once Plague Axe is researched, but the Hexen can get some pretty spicy spells on them.
I do agree with you that the Skull of Shedda's sort of value changes throughout the game. In the early game, it's more about getting that infest so you can get some fiends while you're creeping, and more players could take advantage of the scouting tool in the mid game or late game even. I've even seen a few pros rebuild a Hexen they've lost in the mid game just for the skulls for scouting, and I think that's that's a play that I'd love to see more of. This is interesting. Sodam's put his farm here at the energy camp, and we now see just
that is interesting.
Farm going down at speed camp over here too. And it's a conclave, it looks like, from Sodam, and we got 2 production again from Onu.
Yeah. I wonder if the meat farm going down at the energy camp is just because those creeps just have so much health on them that taking them early means that you need something to soak up the damage, which the Fellhogs and the farm will do.
I agree. I think that, and the other thing is putting it down a little early and letting it sort of cook like this. You'll have all 3 of your Fellhogs out, so that's one argument to not put it at your first camp. This looks like it might be the first camp for Onu, but I don't see Onu's units out yet.
Me neither. Sodam's Hexen took a bit of a thrashing there.
Oh,
or
did
what?
Oh, she might have gotten cabbage. Yeah. And now we see Onu coming down to... It looked for a second like Sodam might try and take this camp, but no, Sodam's gone for his own camp.
Yeah, that's... I think that's a really interesting move, too, to go for the energy regen camp first. I don't know how much that passive energy regen is going to do for his Hexen. He might be able to get one more Skull of Shutout before... Like, one extra Skull of Shutout.
Right.
Before Plague Axes is done, but... maybe it's for the Luminite rewards. Maybe that's why he went for the...
Right, and that camp actually gives Therium as well, so it's possible that...
Yeah.
He may have, and we do see, in fact, a ritual chamber. That's, you know, I wasn't really watching his build very well, but that's something that you could imagine they're going for. Like, if I get that camp, it gives me the extra 30 Ethereum, and that allows me to put down my ritual chamber a little bit sooner, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also interesting that we don't see an expansion from Onu just yet on. But this is like a much bigger map than Titan's Causeway. I would imagine that both players would have gone for an expansion sooner, but I guess they're wanting to fight.
This might be a little bit more of an all-in play because, well, he does have a lot of units coming out of those two production structures, but Sodam seems to be keeping up.
Yeah, and his Plague Axes are halfway done. I don't know if Onu's made any progress on making Plague Axes. I don't think we see any research. Oh, there we go.
We see a ritual chamber, but Plague Axes are actually done for Onu.
Okay.
So that's a little bit quicker timing. And he might be looking to be a bit aggressive now. And we do see Sodam pulling back. Or maybe. We'll see.
Both players almost perfectly even in supply. It'll be interesting to see them circle each other and figure out what they want to do here.
Oh, wow. They both have Plague Axes.
Just letting him into the natural.
Yeah, he split the army. He's taking out the reinforcements. That's not good. And now he's on top of these imps and getting some fiends.
Sodam using his own effigy to make a permanent effigy there, but it gets focused down.
Yeah, and it looks like his units are not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Onu's...
Sodam coming out worse on that, and the Superstone's only going to be able to do so much, and this might be the end.
Yep, we'll see if Sodam GG's out here. No, he pulls his imps, trying to get that last bit of DPS, but there's too many fiends here. Yeah, there comes the GG. Okay, here we are back at it in game number 3, and this is going to be Sodam in the Blue Infernal, and his opponent, Onu, in the Red Infernal. They've both taken one game, and we're back on Titan's Causeway?
Yeah, I was just wondering, it's like, we already were on Titan's Causeway. I think on the bracket, it shows the map rules. I thought it did anyway.
It did. They were in Korean, and I couldn't read them.
Yeah. I'll have to bust out the Google Lens here next time we get a second.
Is this... I just want to make sure we're not back in the same game. This looks like a different game, does it?
We'll see if the Hexen teleports the moment it gets up to Is it?
I don't remember them battling like this in the last game, so I think this... With faith, I'm going to say this is game 3, and we haven't made a mistake, and they are indeed repeating this map.
Yeah, I think you're right. The upper right... get the cabbage. The upper right cabbage. Player made it all the way into the main.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
ooh,
no!
We get... No! Oh! Don't like to see that. Wow. And that's out with some early gaunts out of Sodam, able to snipe the Hexen. That is...
The 1 minute 31 second loss of a Hexen is huge.
Yeah. I have friends who say they'll GG right then. Like,
definitely.
Out of embarrassment almost. I mean, I lose Hexens to slimes, so, you know, if I GG just from losing my Hexen to a slime, I'd GG in a lot more games, probably. So I'm glad I don't.
Yep. I really like that micro matters so much in the early creeping phase of the game. Wait, how's he oh no, those fiends came from the brute.
From the brute, yeah. Unfortunately, when you're creeping without your Hexen, it makes things so much more difficult. And like this camp, I don't know if I'd want to take this camp with 2 fiends and 2 gaunts. We do have another brute on the way here.
He's got a fully saturated meat farm. I think he'll be all right. It's not like the Hexen adds much more DPS, but not being able to generate those fiends is going to be a bummer.
Exactly. You're right about the Fellhogs. They're tanking out one of these Shadow Demons almost completely.
Yeah,
And
I think the way that creep aggro works is that it's not the unit that attacked it that gets targeted first. It's the first enemy unit in range that gets targeted first. So what he could have done was used a Hexen to like get behind the meat farm and aggro the camp, and then both Shadow Demons would have attacked the Fellhogs.
exactly.
But it's just, you know, sometimes you just want to get it done. You don't want to fuss around with it too much.
Sure. Sometimes you don't want to micro your units while you're creeping because you have macro to do in the early game as well.
Exactly.
Now we do see.
I forget who said it, that RTS is just like it's task saturation simulator, because there's always something else to do, and it's like, all right, you could sacrifice a little bit of finesse just for speed in the overall game, which I think is a very wise move. Like, having one perfect play is not as good as having like a pretty good play that sets you up for fights later on in the future.
I think you're onto something there. There's a trade-off. And
Yeah.
I often am microing and then I'm like, oh, why do I have 500 mins? You know.
Yeah.
Well, I know I have. Why? Because I've been admiring my micro.
That's right. I had to make sure that one fiend had all of its white health. That's why. What am I doing?
Whoa, a little slip on the bug there. We got Plague Axes on. Reaper's Rush already on the way. So Sodam already has the Plague Axes up with Reaper Rush on the way and a second base, but it's Onu that has units. Onu's made units. Ooh, huge Nightfall infestation.
Beautiful connection.
Wow, okay, so that could almost be it right there, although the Brutes are pushing forward and forcing the Gaunts just to reposition a little bit. More reinforcements
I was so
arrive.
I would back up a little bit. Get the Fellhogs into the fight, just so they're like soaking up a hit or doing just a little bit of damage. But yeah, soaking hits is really good.
Ooh, good way to... I wasn't clear who actually aggroed those units, but if that was Onu in the retreat, that was really good move to keep the army off of him.
It was. That was a really cool little move.
And now we see Sodam trying to glitch out this. With your Gaunts, you can often glitch this camp a little.
Yeah. On Titan's Causeway, if you keep your units behind the, so you see the chicken farm off to the west there.
Yeah.
If you keep your units south of that post where the gate would be.
Oh, you've got it figured
of the
out.
southern post. That's like the
cutoff
line
point
of demarcation.
Ooh, and that's a GG right out of Onu right there. And I think he just knew he had lost.